I'm Bob from Hauptwerk Hardware, and today we're going to take a look at this. It's the new interface board for the Universal Midi Encoder, and it's a bit different from the old one, much more modern and much easier to use. So the other advantage of it is that it's also cheaper to make, which means that it's going to be cheaper for you guys to buy. So let's take a closer look and see what you get with the new second generation interface board for the Universal Midi Encoder. Okay, so here's the original interface board for the Universal Encoder, and it's got all of these pins on, and the idea is that the encoder itself plugs onto this row of pins in the center here, or the square of pins in the center, and then we can solder to all of these other pins around the edge. There were 4 rows originally on this board of our note inputs, so 1 to 12 for the notes of the octave, and then all of the other pins around the edge were for either the octave lines or for our analog inputs, and our plus 5 volts and 0 volts over there. And the comments that we've received from people over the years, I mean, this has been in production now, it's at least 8 years, it's possibly longer. It's quite hard to solder to these pins. Some people like to use those little DuPont push-on connectors, but again, if you use those, then they're not very secure. They can become detached very, very easily. So it's got its limitations. The idea of the board in the first place is that it has these 2 resistor packs here and the 220 ohm resistor over here for the MIDI, and it has the MIDI socket here, so it makes everything easy to connect to, as opposed to trying to solder wires onto the actual encoder itself and the socket and everything else. However, as I say, this has been around a long time, and I felt that it was time that we move forward and came up with something that was a little bit better than this and a little bit easier to use. So enter the new encoder board, or rather interface board. So you can see it's roughly the same size. It's still got 4 mounting holes, although they're not in exactly the same place, so it's not not identical. But it's got the same things. It's got the 2 resistor packs here, it's got the MIDI socket here, and the resistor for the MIDI along the back here. So if we move the old one out the way and take a closer look at the new one, you can see around the edge we've only got our 1 set now of note inputs, so 0 to 11 or 1 to 12, however you want to look at that. They're marked on the board anyway, through 0 through 11. And then to the right of that we've got these other pins, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21 and 22. That's how they're marked on there. The reason that they have those markings and that then they don't just carry on with 13, 14, 15 and so on, is that those numbers are the actual numbers that you would use when you're programming the Universal Encoder for your scan lines or octave lines. So that pin there, where it says 15, would be octave line 15. That one over there would be octave line 22, and it's the same around the side. So if we went for that one there, for example, that would be octave line number 49. And along the top here we've got the odd ones along the top here, so number 40 there, number 50 there, and so on and so forth. Then along the top we've got 5 volts and 0 volts. Those are for our analog inputs, so that just gives us the voltage that we can use to connect to a potentiometer. And then we've got our A0 through A7, those are our analog inputs, and again they conform with the same numbers that's used when you program the encoder. So that's the main difference with it really. It's a double-sided board. The other one, the old one, was just single-sided. This one here, obviously there was nothing on this side, and it just had the connections, the copper on that side. But this one, it's got some on both sides. So that's obviously a good way to tell them apart. We're calling this one the Generation 2 or second generation interface board, and this is the original one. So that's when you look on our downloads page, if you want the user manuals for these things, that's how you'll find them listed. These solder connections, they're very, very easy to use. And I've just done a video about the solder practice kit, which gives you a lot more information on using these. If you're at all nervous about using these, don't be, because they're 10 times easier to use than these. And whilst you had the 4 lots of note inputs here, but you've only got 1 here, that's not an issue, because it's very, very easy to connect multiple wires to these things. So if you had 2 or 3 wires coming from 2 or 3 keyboards, for example, then you can just strip the ends of the wire, twist them together, tin them, cut them off to be the right length, and then just pop them on there, and that's much easier than trying to fiddle around with this. And ideally you want to put heat shrink over these when they're done and everything else to stop them touching each other. So I think this is a much nicer, much neater solution to the problem of connecting to the actual encoder itself. However, there's one major advantage to this, and that is if you turn this over and you look at all of the solder connections on the back, there are a lot. I don't know how many there are, I haven't counted them, but it feels like forever when you're sitting there soldering them all up, as opposed to this new one that has only got these few connections here, and for the resistor packs, the resistor and the MIDI socket. So what that means is that it's much quicker for us to put one of these together, and being much quicker means that it's much cheaper, and that cost saving we just pass straight on to you guys. So this board, the generation 2 board, is going to be much cheaper than the old original board. So you'll see this on the website very shortly, and you'll see the price difference. I'm not certain what it's going to be yet. I think these original ones are about £75. The new ones then will be about £50. So it's a saving of a third, because they're just so much quicker to make. And as I say, all that saving is passed on to you guys, so I hope you find that helpful. Now, what else to say about this? The new ones will be the only ones available on the website as soon as we get them up there on the web shop. These old ones, I've got half a dozen or so of these left, but that's it. And when they're gone, they're gone. So if for whatever reason you may want one of these original ones, then you'll have to email me and ask for that specifically. These are not going to be on the website any longer, so email me and ask. They will be at the same original price, obviously, because they still have the same amount of work, but as I say, there's half a dozen or so left. When they're gone, that's it. We're not making any more of these. So if for whatever reason you want one of these, then email and ask. Other than that, when they're gone, they're gone. So that's about it really, for the new interface board. I hope you agree that it's a much nicer solution to the old one, even if it's only for the fact that it's got all the numbers on the pins and you don't have to keep looking back and forth at the manual. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of advantages. Anyway, I hope that's helpful in terms of the video and in terms of the new board. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.